In the last video, I tracked this alignment through Mauretania, including its capital city of Nouakchott and surrounding areas, toward around north-central Mauretania, taking a look at what is likely the longest train in the world that runs between the iron ore mines of Zouarrat in the Sahara Desert and Nouadhibou in northern Mauretania on the coast, uncovering information about the noteworthy ancient cities of Attar, Singouedi, and Ouadani, all located in close proximity to the Eye of the Sahara in central Mauretania. Took a quick look at the Banc d'Arguin National Park on the coast, and ended up by checking out some things on the island of Santiago, the largest of the Cape Verde Islands. My name is Michelle Gibson. The alignment crosses over Fernando de Noronha, the name of the main island and its archipelago off the coast of Brazil near the city of Natal. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and on at least 2 other alignments that I know of. The main island has an area of 7.1 square miles or 18.4 kilometers squared, and the archipelago's total area is 10 square miles or 26 kilometers squared. So what I found out that is really interesting about this place is that in its relatively small area, there were at least 10 star forts here at one time. The largest and best preserved is the Fortaleza Nossa Senhora dos Remedios. The Forte de São José do Moro was the only fort built on a secondary island. It still has imposing ruins. Interesting to note that while the Portuguese word moro translates to hill or mound, there is definitely a more sound contained within it. The Forte de Santo Antonio construction was an irregular 4-sided polygon. You can see the Morro do Pico framed through this archway at the Forte de Santo Antonio, like what you see of the winter turret through this arch at Arches National Park in Utah, at the Garden of the Gods in Colorado, at the hole in the wall on Rialto Beach on Washington State's Olympic Peninsula, and at Petra in Jordan. I believe these alignments were intentional and not coincidental. There will be more examples of what appears to be intentional kinds of things throughout this video, and not the result of natural forces. The Forte de Santana was situated over the old harbor in the Via dos Remedios. The ruins of the Forte de Nossa Senhora da Conceição are visible in the vegetation. The Forte de Santa Cruz do Pico was described as a small redoubt, defined as a temporary or supplemental fortification, typically square or polygonal. This is an old map of the Forte de São Pedro do Boldro. People come to the Fort Boldro lookout for the sunset view. There is a good view from the lookout at Fort Boldro of the Two Brothers Rock, which appears to be in alignment with the sun. Like Keyhole Rock at Pfeiffer Beach at Big Sur in California, where the light comes through the keyhole arch perfectly during the winter solstice time of year, in December and January. A solar alignment at Monument Rock's National Natural Landmark, otherwise known as the Chalk Pyramids, in Gove County, Kansas. At Mesa Arch in Canyonlands National Park in Utah. And at Durdle Door near Lulworth, England in Dorset during the winter solstice period. Back on Fernando de Noronha, there is also the Forte de São Bautista dos Dois Ormaios, the Forte de San Joaquim dos Oeste, and lastly, the Forte do Bom Jesus do Leão. We are told the islands were named after a wealthy Portuguese merchant, Fernando de Noronha, who was granted the first captaincy of the islands of São João da Quaresma. He was the financier and organizer of a private commercial expedition to exploit Brazil wood from new lands to the crown, and the flagship of the expedition he organized to do this hit a reef near the island in 1503 and had to be salvaged. There was an island named Quaresma in the cartographic record showing up in a map called the Cantino Planisphere, said to have been completed by an anonymous Portuguese cartographer before 1502. A planisphere is defined as a map formed by the projection of a sphere or part of a sphere on a plane. There are a couple of things I would like to point out about the Cantino Planisphere. The first is that the Earth's grid lines appear on it, which also appear on the Catalan Atlas of the Mallorcan Cartographic School. The Catalan Atlas is considered the most important map of the medieval period in the Catalan language, dated to 1375. This is a depiction of the Iberian Peninsula, with Madrid at its center in the Catalan Atlas. It altogether has 6 vellum leaves, each being 26 inches or 65 centimeters by 20 inches or 50 centimeters in size. Each leaf includes the mapping of the geometric lines and shapes that you see depicted here. It would seem that the Earth's grid lines started to disappear from maps in the 1500s, as Gerardus Mercator, a Flemish geographer, cartographer, and cosmographer, published a world map in 1569 that is considered to be the first where sailing courses on the sphere were mapped to the plane map, allowing for a correction of the chart to be more useful for sailors. Here's a close-up section of the 1569 map showing the depiction of straight ley lines in the seas, but not on land and sea as were present on the flat projections of the Cantino Planisphere and the Catalan Atlas. Not only that, Mercator was also a globe maker, like this one from 1541. So Mercator was said to have made a revolutionary flat projection map that corrected the chart for sailors, and the Earth as a globe as well? I have to ask the question, is this information telling us something about what was actually going on here? While the focus of my research is not about proving or disproving flat Earth versus planet, nor am I directed by it, I do find this information about older maps on flat plains with ley lines to be extremely interesting and noteworthy. This is where my research has taken me, and I am sharing my findings. Here's a close-up of the region on the Cantino Planisphere depicting Quaresma off the coast of Brazil, shown by the lower arrow, and the upper arrow points to the Cape Verde Islands at the center of a circle with multiple radial lines and sectors emanating from it. This would indicate to me that the Cape Verde Islands were an important location on the Earth's geometric grid system. I found a similar geometric place of importance centered on the city of Gijón, the largest city of Asturias in northern Spain, and port city on the Bay of Biscay. I have placed a modern map of Spain on the left, with the city of Gijón circled, because the circle with 16 sectors depicted on the Catalan Atlas on the right appears to center on the city of Gijón. It indicates a past importance to Gijón that is no longer recognized. The next location on the alignment I am tracking is the Trindade and Martin Vaz archipelago, located in the southern Atlantic Ocean, 680 miles or 1,100 kilometers east of the coast of Espírito Santo, Brazil, which it is part of. This group of islands has a total area of 4 miles or 10.4 kilometers and a population of 32 Brazilian Navy personnel. They were said to have been discovered by the Portuguese in 1502, and along with Brazil became part of the Portuguese Empire until 1822, the year Brazil became independent from Portugal. Trindade, also known as Trinidad, is the largest island. Many military and scientific expeditions from Europe and North America visited the islands. For example, the famous English astronomer Edmund Halley, for whom Halley's Comet was named, was said to have taken possession of the islands on behalf of the British monarchy in 1700. At least one visitor to these islands was a fortune seeker. In 1893, James Hardin Hickey, a French-American newspaper editor, author, and adventurer, born in San Francisco in 1854, proclaimed himself James I, Prince of Trinidad. He started selling Principality of Trinidad government bonds, opened an office in New York City, started making secretarial appointments, and he designed postage stamps for it. Prince James I of Trinidad's new principality didn't last long, however, as the British seized Trinidad as a telegraph cable relay station, and he was forced to surrender to them. The British occupied what they called South Trinidad in 1895 and 1896, until an agreement was reached with Brazil. Since there is relatively little in the written historical record about this place, I'm going to point out some things about the island's topography that drew my attention. The first are the pyramidal peaks on display in this photo near the island's shore on the top, and the tall pointed peak in the foreground reminds me of Shiprock in Sedona, Arizona on the bottom, which I see every day. The second are the shapes of the shoreline and coves on the island of Trindade. Which are quite similar in appearance to the coastline of an island in the Caribbean, the northern 60% of which is governed as a collectivity of France called Saint Martin, Martin, and the southern 40% is governed by the Netherlands and called Saint Martin, Maarten, as well as that of Casco Cove on the near island of Attu, the furthest west of Alaska's Aleutian Islands in the Bering Sea, and where there was an operational U.S. naval station, then Coast Guard station at Casco Cove, from June of 1943 until August of 2010. And the same single and double beachhead configurations can be found at Halawa Bay on the Hawaiian island of Molokai. And there are many such configurations on the island of Chichijima, one of Japan's subtropical Bonin Islands, and part of Tokyo's metropolitan administrative area, like Washington Beach, Miyanohama Beach, and Hatsunura Bay. We are told that until 1850, 85% of this island was covered by a forest of Colubrina grandulosa trees, after which time the indiscriminate cutting of trees and the introduction of non-native animals led to an extinction of the trees that were once there and causing a heavy erosion throughout the island. The other islands of this archipelago, the islands of Martin Vaz, consist of 4 islands: North Island, Crack Island, Needle Rock, and South Island. Have you ever heard of these places? I sure hadn't before I started tracking the alignments. And it is interesting to note, the island groups I'm covering in this video typically show up on more than one alignment. The next island group on the alignment I am tracking is the British Overseas Territory of Tristan da Cunha, which is also a volcanic island named for a Portuguese explorer who is credited for its discovery in 1506. And home to British citizens living in the world's most isolated settlement. There is no airstrip on the main island, so the only way of traveling in and out is by boat, a 6-day trip from South Africa. The first undisputed landing was the Dutch East India Company ship Heemstede on February 7th of 1643, and the Dutch made 4 more stops there in the next 25 years, making the first rough charts of the islands in 1656. Tristan da Cunha was favorably located on the world's historic shipping lanes between the west and the east. The Dutch East India Company was a mega-corporation founded by a government-directed amalgamation of several Dutch rival trading companies established on March 20th, 1602. It was the world's first formally listed public company and was influential in the rise of corporate-led globalism in the early modern period. Also known as the VOC, or Verenigde Oostindische Company, it was chartered as a company to trade primarily with Mughal Suba, or Mughal Bengal, which includes modern Bangladesh and the West Bengal state of modern India. Mughal Bengal was described as a paradise of nations, and its inhabitants' living standards were among the highest in the world at one time. And for comparison, a typical photo of the poverty found in Bangladesh today. Tristan da Cunha in the present day is considered a constituent part of the British Overseas Territory of the South Atlantic, which also includes the islands of St. Helena, where Napoleon lived in exile from 1815 until his death in 1821. And Ascension Island, which besides being a British colonial outpost, has a U.S. military air base, satellite, and submarine tracking station, a BBC transmitter, and a listening post run by GCHQ's Composite Signals Organization. Ascension Island's residents have been squeezed out for over 100 years. Also, I first found the location of Ascension Island on a major alignment emanating off of the North American star tetrahedron, where one of the lines extending from Merida, Mexico, crosses right over Ascension Island, a tiny speck of land in this part of the South Atlantic Ocean. I can also make a circumstantial case that islands I have talked about thus far in this video have an octagonal geometric relationship between each other. I found the map showing the relationship in red of an equilateral triangle between the Trindade and Martin Vaz Islands, Tristan da Cunha, and St. Helena. I added Fernando de Noronha in blue to Trindade and Martin Vaz and St. Helena to form an octagon, with Ascension Island off the right side of the upper triangle. The main settlement of the main island of Tristan da Cunha is Edinburgh of the Seven Seas and located on the only inhabited island. Named in 1867 in honor of the visit of Prince Albert, the Duke of Edinburgh, the second son of Queen Victoria, it has approximately 250 permanent inhabitants in the present day. The islands of Tristan da Cunha were annexed by the United Kingdom in 1816, making them a dependency of the Cape Colony in South Africa, for the stated reasons of preventing the island's use as a base for any attempt to free Napoleon Bonaparte from his prison on St. Helena, and for preventing the United States from using the islands as a base for naval cruisers. While possession was abandoned by the United Kingdom in 1817, a garrison of British Marines stayed and formed the nucleus of a permanent population, which gradually grew, and was once a stopping point for lengthy sea voyages until the time of the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869. It eventually became a dependency of the British Crown in October of 1875. In January of 1938, Britain declared Tristan da Cunha a dependency of St. Helena, and at that time created the British Crown colony of St. Helena and dependencies. Then shortly afterwards, Tristan da Cunha was commissioned as a stone frigate, meaning a naval establishment on land, and used as a secret signals intelligence station to monitor Nazi U-boats and shipping movements in the South Atlantic Ocean. The Donateur Castle was an ocean liner said to have had its keel laid down in 1936 for Cape Town service, launched in 1936, and retired in 2002, operating for 66 years. In 1942, the Donateur Castle was seconded for a special assignment and was used to sail on the top-secret mission of erecting the meteorological and wireless radio station on Tristan da Cunha, used for this secret intelligence collection. There are several other islands of the Tristan da Cunha archipelago. Inaccessible Island, described as an extinct volcano with sheer sea cliffs and very few landings on boulder beaches, together with Gouge Island, an island uninhabited except for a South African weather station, a dependency of Tristan da Cunha that is physically located 250 miles or 400 kilometers southeast of the island, and also on the alignment I am tracking, that make up the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Gouge and Inaccessible Islands, Important Bird Areas, and Alliance for Zero Extinction Sites. Nightingale Island is also part of the Tristan da Cunha archipelago and is described as an active volcanic island. I'm going to end this video here and pick up the alignment in the next video at the Kerguelen Islands, part of the French Southern and Antarctic lands.